Good evening. I'm Sandy Becker. The program you're about to see is Put It in Writing. This letter was written by our first guest. Her handwriting is utterly unique. There's not another like it in the world. Our panel has had 1 week to study this handwriting sample. They don't know who our famous penwoman is, yet they will endeavor to draw her personality from what she revealed when she put it in writing. The first expert on the panel is Dan Anthony. Dan is director of the Mayor's Commission on Human Relations for the city of Newark. For 20 years, a graphologist. Dan, could you tell me, what is graphology?
Graphology, Sandy, is a psychological technique for analyzing and interpreting handwriting. In addition, it is the art of constructing a total personality portrait out of the way you or anybody else puts it in writing.
Thank you, Dan. Now, the lady centered between our two experts is Virginia Graham. Jenny is the only amateur panelist, but she has a sharp, intuitive sense for the story that handwriting tells.
We hope. Hello, Sandy.
Good evening, Jenny. And this gentleman is Dr. Kenneth Wade Thompson, Vice President of Organon Incorporated, the surgeon who has taken an avocational interest in the science of graphology.
Good evening, Sandy.
Good evening, Dr. Thompson. Now, I'm going to ask each of you to give a word picture clue of our first guest's personality. Let's start with you, Dan. Briefly, what do you see in this handwriting?
I see a sophisticated European woman who, oddly enough, believes that women were created equal, to men that is, Sandy. And I think, so far as we're concerned, flattery isn't going to get us anyplace.
I see. It may get you somewhere, but perhaps that's to be determined later on. And Virginia, what do you see?
Well, I see the kind of a girl that would get all dressed up to go to an opening night. But if she felt faint, she would never give in until all the newspaper photographers were there.
This is a lady who likes publicity, in other words.
Well, spell my name. I don't care if it's incorrect, but just spell it.
And Dr. Thompson, what do you see in this lady's handwriting?
Well, this lady has charm, much intelligence, great self-confidence, and craves a career.
Well, an interesting combination. And while our panel has been discussing her, the woman who wrote the letter has been within earshot in our isolated writing room. Miss X, does the panel have you down, Pat? Won't you please put it in writing? Well, Virginia, we would like to turn to you. Would you like to comment on our guest's handwriting at the moment?
I couldn't see what she said. What did she say,
She said
Sandy?
some of her best friends are women.
Well, I don't think she'll count me in on it after what I said.
Well, we'll meet the celebrated lady and ask her to write again after this message. Now let's meet the lady behind the pen. She's beautiful Monique Van Buren. Monique, you heard what the panel said about you. How would you describe your personality in 1 or 2 sentences?
Well, I'm moody, I'm very ambitious, I'm not lazy, and I'm definitely not too thrifty.
I see. Well, now we're back to you, and during this portion of the program, the panel can neither hear nor see our guest, and those earphones, as you know, provide insulation against all your remarks. And now I would like to ask you some very penetrating questions, which I would like for you to answer quite honestly if you can. Here they are. They're designed to test your own self-knowledge. Then I'll ask the experts the same three, testing their knowledge of you from your handwriting. Ultimately, we'll find out whether your handwriting fooled them or if you are fooling yourself. Now, if you prove them wrong, your favorite charitable cause gets $25 for each wrong answer they give. Shall we start, Monique?
Okay.
All right, here's our first one. Monique, what takes you further in this world? Beauty or brains?
I would say beauty does, Sandy. Most people don't give you credit for having brains anyway, and so beauty doesn't hurt at all.
And you have a goodly supply of that. Will you please write your answer, beauty, on the grapho screen for us, Monique? Beauty. Monique, anyone in show business knows that a career before the footlights is demanding. It sometimes makes it difficult for the performer to devote sufficient time to normal family life. Monique, if you had to choose, as a woman, which would be more disappointing to you, to remain unmarried for the rest of your life or to be an absolute failure in your profession?
Well, to me personally, there's nothing worse than a failure. And I'd say absolute failure would be far worse than anything else.
Would you write absolute failure on the graphic screen for us, Monique? Thank you. And here's your last question. Monique, you're known to many people who have never seen you perform, mainly on the strength of the frequency with which your name appears in the papers. Not all of this publicity has been favorable. Do you think it's better to get any publicity or no publicity?
Well, I don't want bad publicity. No one does. But I think in that case, I'd rather have no publicity at all.
No publicity rather than adverse publicity. Well, would you write no publicity on the grapho screen? And I'm going to return to the panel area. And I'll see you in just a little bit.
I'll never know whether Helen Trent married Gil Whitney. Well,
we'll find that out. Maybe young Dr. Malone will be able to provide the answer.
That's the better one.
Certainly. All right, panel, here we go. Back from the isolated writing room, out of breath just a little bit. Now comes the test of our experts. Dan Anthony first. Now, Dan, from this handwriting, what would you say takes her further? Beauty or brains?
First of all, Sandy, all handwriting, in a way, is brain writing. Every time you put pencil to a piece of paper, you're exposing not only some of your brain, but also some of your natural impulses. I would say she has a pretty nice combination of both in this writing. But since your question is largely on brain, let's take a look here at the top of her ends. Notice how sharp and peaked they are. Sharpness means acuity. It means keenness. We interpret it as analytical ability and critical talent. Therefore, this girl is not only analytical toward others, but critical toward herself as well.
Quite introspective, then, you would say.
Quite introspective, but quite sharp.
Mm-hmm.
A keen mind.
Accurate.
Thus,
Then you would say, then, the emphasis would be on brains.
So far.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the rest of it is, since we're talking about beauty, this is a nice-looking handwriting, Sandy. It's totally different from anything that you see in a copybook, either in Europe or America, but it is not what we call a pictorial or a beautiful script. It's easily written, and it's beautiful because it's simple, but that's about as far as its beauty goes. Since she is not motivated by beauty, she doesn't make a beautiful reproduction on that page. Therefore, I'm going to say that although beauty may have taken her where she is today, her head is going to take her where she goes tomorrow.
I see. Then the foundation would be brains.
Brains.
Thank you, Dan Anthony. And now, Virginia. If this guest had a choice between any publicity, even if some of it were bad, or no publicity at all, which do you think she would choose?
I'm afraid I sort of gave my answer at the beginning of the show, Sandy, when you asked me to give a brief picture. Now let me tell you where I find that. This girl, if she made her eyes any taller, she'd be as tall as the Eiffel Tower. And if you see this interesting T, this shows a good, healthy ego. I've learned to be a little more tactful. I was the only one that was not quite as tactful as the boys in my original description. That's why they'll get farther than beauty or brains. And if you'll notice here, in this word, all of her capital letters are very well defined. This is the kind of handwriting that calls for attention. She needs it as much as she needs oxygen. Look at this T here. Very bold, great pressure. She's a woman of determination. And if she were in a venture, this strong determination, the Y, the boldness of the stroke, means that she would have to meet with success. And publicity is a part of success. So therefore, I would say if she had to take her choice, whether it was bad publicity or not, she would want publicity.
This is a woman who thrives on attention, and therefore publicity would be your answer.
Yes.
Any publicity.
Yes, and she's not alone, of course.
Thank you, Virginia, and neither are you.
No.
Dr. Ken Thompson, now we turn to you. Which would this woman consider more disappointing, remaining unmarried or being an absolute failure in her profession?
Well, sir, there are several signs which I think very clearly give the answer to this. First of all, notice the general requirement of space that this person has. The large writing occupying the entire space. Then notice the supreme self-confidence and assurance shown by the capital I's everywhere. And then the vertical alignment of all the letters showing a cool self-assurance. And then, most important, notice how the stroke is diverted to the horizontal. Most people show it in the vertical. This indicates a strong determination toward a career. It's clear that this woman would not tolerate failure. Therefore, my answer is that she would much prefer to remain unmarried than to have failure in her career.
Well, thank you, Dr. Thompson. Now the time has come for the graphologist to meet the writer. Monique Van Buren, meet the experts. And here she is. This is the lady who requires publicity, and I think we have some differences of opinion here, Monique.
Thank you.
If you glance at the screen, you'll see that there's some very hearty difference of opinion as to the real you. First of all, would you like to begin with Dan Anthony, who feels that the emphasis is on brains rather than beauty?
Well, all that I can say is that he's completely wrong. I think any woman would go much further with beauty than brains.
Why?
Well, I've proved it.
Oh, yes, I should say you have. All right, then, and now we have another exception. Virginia insists you'd rather take any publicity rather than none at all.
Well, all I can say is Virginia's wrong, too. I think bad publicity is the worst thing that any star could get, and I'd rather have none at all.
All right, well, now it's time to turn to our authority, Monique. There seems to be quite an active dispute here. So let's apply to our authority, and in this case, we reach someone who should know you better than anyone else. Monique, don't look now, but who do you think that is peering at us? You recognize the face?
Oh, my mother.
That's dear Mother.
So dear, but Mother.
And she never looked better. Do you feel that Mother knows best, Monique?
She tells me she does.
I'm asking you what you feel.
I guess so.
Mother often does. All right, then, we'll ask these questions of your mother, and let's see what she has to say. Mrs. Louise Van Buren, would Monique take any publicity?
Being Monique's mother and knowing that she's intelligent enough to realize that beauty does not last forever, and with brains, she has a much longer way to go. I feel that she would answer this question, brains rather than beauty.
Well, would you like to retaliate?
I'll see her when I get home.
Uh-oh. Well, we can see a lovely and enjoyable evening at home, discussing publicity,
Yes.
of course. Monique, she proved the panel right. Her word is final. Mrs. Louise Van Buren. Would Monique take any publicity rather than none at all? And she said you would take any. And once again, it seems that Mama knows best, and the panel seems to know best, Monique. Do you have any final comment now?
None at all, except it's been fun.
And you certainly are beautiful,
Thank you.
wherever that gets you.
I know what her final opinion is, Sandy.
What's that, Virginia?
Mama's got to go.
Mom? No, well, here we are. We look at the scoreboard, and it indicates that on the two conflict questions, the authority substantiated the experts, and in the agreement question, all three people said Monique would rather be a spinster than an absolute failure. But I don't guess any of us really worry about whether you're going to become a spinster or not. You have many, many long and successful years ahead of you. And thank you so much, Monique Van Buren, for putting it in writing for us. And good night. Well, this handwriting belongs to our second guest. Our panel knows that it was written by a man of 35, but that's all they know. And we'll find out what he reveals when he takes pen in hand after this message. Well, panel, you've had sufficient time to collect your thoughts, and now we're about to do business with our second guest, gentlemen. And we'll start with Dan Anthony for a brief analysis of his handwriting. What do you see here, Dan?
Sandy, I see a man who loves children.
Where do you see that? That's interesting.
Well, this is a long lecture, Sandy, but I'll give it to you briefly.
Succinctly.
Anybody who has this kind of a cursive wave connecting his letters together shows a love of people. If he has it as this man has it, and he's mentioned it right in the letter, he loves his children, then I have to agree with him. He loves his children, right?
A very affectionate person, then, we would gather from his handwriting.
Now,
Virginia?
Now, wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This doesn't mean that he likes most people.
Uh-huh.
He hates a bore, he loathes a snob, and he really detests big shots.
I see. Well, that covers that adequately. Virginia?
This makes him my very good friend. This is the kind of a man, Sandy, that is so modest that if he were at a Hollywood opening and a lot of people came up to him and said, now tell me, are there any stars here? And he, of course, I think is a star. He would point out the other people and not even mention his own name.
Very modest man.
More modest than that, you can't be.
Dr. Thompson, what do you say?
Well, sir, although he's modest, he soon becomes himself pretty soon. He's very able. He has a special ability for release of emotion.
I see. All right, thank you, experts. Now you don your earphones, and we shall isolate you all.
Swing
and
it
listen to some of Sammy Kaye, and maybe a good Artie Shaw record or two. And we'll make a dash for the isolated writing room.
He's old-fashioned.
Mr. X, you've listened to the panel's evaluation. Why don't you write your answer in the reaction? They may very well be after they meet you tonight. The gentleman behind the pen is Eli Wallach, Elia Kazan's favorite actor, last seen in the movie Baby Doll. Eli, you heard what the panel had to say about you. How would you sum up your personality? How do you see yourself in just a couple of well-chosen sentences?
Well, Sandy, I think I see myself as a pretty level-headed, even-tempered sort of a guy. I think I know where I'm going.
You know where you're headed.
I hope so.
You have your plans made. Well, good. Here's where we test both the panel and test you, your self-estimate. Sometimes, you know, our conscious doesn't know what our subconscious is doing. Now, the panel claims they can see both in the handwriting. I'm going to fire 3 leading questions at you. Now, be careful, because then the experts get the same questions. Now, they may or may not agree with you, but believe me, we'll check on both of you. If you prove them wrong, you get $25 for each of their wrong answers. Follow so far?
Yes.
All right. Eli, your friends and co-performers say you hardly ever lose your temper. They think you're a mild, gentle type citizen. Suppose someone deliberately attempted to discredit you by attacking your character. Would you fight back, or would you prefer to remain silent?
Well, I think that if somebody deliberately attacked me, I think when the final issue was drawn, I would definitely fight back.
Eli, would you write "fight back" on our grapho screen? All righty. And now for our second question. Your second is this. Would you rather be remembered as the writer of a great play or the actor, which you are, who best interpreted the leading role?
Gee, I remember a time with my wife. This has come up before, and my answer was then and is now that I would rather be the actor.
You would rather be the actor?
Well, no, I would definitely then say the writer of the great play.
You seem to be torn between the two.
Well,
of the two.
yes, but of the two, I would definitely say I'd rather be the writer.
Would you write writer then for us, Eli? Put that in writing. All right, Eli, let's do a little dreaming now. Suppose suddenly you came into so much money that it would make you secure for the rest of your life. Would you continue in your present profession or strike out for something entirely new? Some whole new sphere?
Well, weighing one against the other, Sandy, I think I'd stay in the profession that I'm in now. I love this. This has been my whole life. I'd stay in the profession that I am now.
All right, would you write continue on our graphic screen? Now, while you're doing that, I'm going to dash over to our panel.
We have
All right,
another
ma'am.
winner in Floral Park.
Another one.
Yeah, bingo.
What was it this time? Was it the same television set? Well, here we are, experts.
Thank you, dear.
Now, our mystery guest has put it in writing for us, and we start again with our good friend Dan Anthony. Dan, here we go. Now, here's the first question to be asked of you. As a matter of fact, I think we'll start with Virginia. And I think ladies first this time. I think we will. You were so upset by the bingo winner that I think it's only proper that we do that.
I would like earphones with a built-in comb.
With a built-in comb,
Yes.
built-in coiffure. If this man were deliberately defamed by a malicious person, Virginia, do you think that he would, on the basis of his handwriting, do you think that he would remain silent, or do you think he'd fight back?
Physically or with words?
Well, I should say either way.
Well, there is a modesty. If you will contrast this handwriting, look at the eye as compared to that of Monique Van Boren, you know, the strong eye. This is a very modest eye. All of his capital letters are small. His middle writing is small, in good taste. If you'll notice the margin, this proves to me that this is the kind of a man who doesn't rush in where angels fear to tread. He analyzes a situation, he evaluates it, and then he starts to write. He is aware of everything. I wouldn't say he's compulsive or impulsive. If you'll notice, there are no great sizes of letters to show, you know, an inner turmoil. I think in the basis of his good control and the precision in his writing and the size of all the letters, that if he thought that it would cause embarrassment to others, he would control himself. And even though it meant taking a lot of control, he would not fight back.
In other words, it isn't as if he didn't want to fight back, but he
No,
did
his
have...
good taste would compel him to withhold his anger.
I say, then your answer would be not fight back.
Not fight back.
All right, Dr. Thompson, if our guest was lucky enough to have enough cash to keep him very well put for the rest of his life, do you think he would continue in his present job or try some entirely new ambition, something completely new and different?
Well, sir, I believe there's some very good clues as to what the correct answer should be there. Notice in his handwriting how the main emphasis is on the baseline, that is, the strength and also the darkness of the stroke. And also notice how in many places the upper areas of the upper loops are less strong and less marked. This indicates that he puts the emphasis on the very baseline of reality all the time. Not only that, but he also has a very strong desire to make a connection with people and with things. So
Where do you see that exactly, Dr. Thompson?
The distance with which he will go to make a connection between his letters in the small letters.
Uh-huh.
These, together with his general intelligence and good judgment, make me think that this man, despite how attractive other things would be that he might have thought of and which his abilities would have told him he might conceivably would do, nevertheless, he would stay with what he's doing and remain in reality. Therefore, I think he would continue with his present work and not undertake some secret ambition.
Continue with his present profession. Now we turn to Dan Anthony. Would our famous penman, Dan, prefer to be the writer of a great play or the actor who best interpreted the leading role?
Now, you see, Sandy, if I have to disagree a little bit with Ken's answer in essence, but I'm getting back really to the same thing, and I'd like to point out to you. We left on these connecting strokes that I spoke about a few moments back.
Yes.
The connecting strokes are these wave-like, we call them garland formations in handwriting. But look at every connection. Between the H and the I and the L and the D and all the way through, they're nice cups. This man is a giver and a giver rather than a receiver.
Mm-hmm.
He's holding out his hand to give to people. That's point number one. Point number two, there isn't really a conspicuous, ostentatious sign in all of his writing. There isn't anything that stands out as a need for show. Would you follow me on that, Sandy?
Yes, so
Would you
far.
agree?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing that is really outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, I have to believe that a man who has the ideal that he has, as is shown what Virginia pointed out, the beautiful artistic design, a sort of a cultural motivation, a total composite picture, might rather be a writer than an actor. If he is an actor, he's doubtless a good one, but I think he might like to take a shot at writing.
I see. Then your answer would be writing.
Yeah.
All right, then. The experts have spoken. Now is the time for our guests to meet our panel face-to-face. Penmen and experts, I would like you to meet. And here is Eli Wallach. Eli Wallach, meet our graphologists. Eli, the experts...
Oh, I'm so glad he won't.
Well, you have an opportunity to fight back now, if you'd like, and you can concentrate it entirely on Virginia.
Oh, yes, we will have a fight, won't we, Virginia? Don't you remember the time, I think it was about 8 months ago, when somebody said something to me, and I thought about it a little while, and then when the whole thing was over, I was still standing, you know?
I know you were, but I'm thinking of the way you fought back in Baby Doll. If that's it, this is the kind
Yeah,
I
but
like.
that took 13 weeks.
And that was very great acting indeed, too. Well, the time for argument is over. When
you
in
part of
doubt,
my fan club,
we
too?
check with authority. Yes, I think I'll join. I have my membership card right here with my chicken inspector badge. There's a well-known watchbird watching you, looking over your shoulder, Eli. And if you can see who she is. Yikes. Mrs. Eli Wallach, lovely Ann Jackson of the Broadway Theater and TV. Well, now, Mrs. Wallach, would your husband fight back, or do you think he would remain silent?
Well, as I know Eli, I would say that definitely he would fight back. He's, however, a very even-tempered young man. It would take a great deal of provocation. He would never get into a fist fight, however.
Well, this was a question asked of me by Virginia, and I wasn't quite sure, but I thought I covered both areas. She asked me, did I mean that you would engage in fisticuffs or verbal fisticuffs? So
Well,
to speak?
my wife will find out when I get home tonight.
Oh, boy. Well, there are going to be 2 lively spots in town, I can tell you that. Eli, the panel, you and your wife agreed twice, but that one time she proved you wrong. Now, panel has a perfect score, so you win nothing, but you did learn that it can be extremely revealing when you put it in writing. Good night, and thank you very much for being here,
Thank
Eli.
you, Sandy.
Well, now we take time out for commercial before we show you the letter next week's guest has written for us. Dan Anthony, what do you expect to find out about our writer next week?
A guy who has a little bit of everything but hasn't concentrated on anything.
I see. Rather divergent interests, in other words.
Right.
And Virginia?
A man who tells a story marvelously, but I'd hate to have him as a witness at a trial if I were the plaintiff.
Thank you, and good night, Virginia.
Good night, Sandy.
Dr. Thompson?
Well, I think I like him from what I see there.
Well, you have a whole week in which to analyze his handwriting, and it'll be very interesting. And that's what the panel thinks. We'll find out what our famous guest thinks next week, and who he is next week at this very same time. Just one more thing. We love fan mail, but cannot do analyses of handwriting by mail, so please don't ask us to do that. Good night, and remember, you reveal the inner you when you put it in writing.